Round 8 is in the books, and it's time to find out which players, teams and coaches won or lost that little bit extra throughout the weekend. Let's go. Let's kick things off with a positive and go to Jake Saligo from the Crows, the Showdown medalist, and his speech was short, sharp and sweet, and I know that guys like Darcy Moore especially are kind of making these speeches after games become a really good affair. They're must listen, they're fantastic. Not everyone's going to speak like Darcy Moore does. I love what Jake Saligo did, got to the point, thanked the Crows, thanked these boys, thanked everyone for coming out, bing bang boom. And he was away. He was fantastic, and that dynamic that he's adding to this Adelaide midfield is spectacular. Got a feel for the Crows a little bit, though. If that Sam Draper holding the ball free kick was paid, they would be percentage outside of the 8 right now, which is extraordinary. His ability to drive out a contest with his legs and his ability to want to take the ball forward is always what's going to set him apart from some other Adelaide midfielders. Thought Matt Crouch was really good in the midfield as well on a day where Jordan Dawson's first half was really quiet. Rory Laird was thereabouts, but certainly didn't dominate. Those two stood up, but especially Saligo, who through the eye test and through statistics was clearly the best player on the ground. By the time this comes out, so much is going to be said about Connor Rose's hammy. I'm still going to put it in the loser section here. I understand and I know that Ken owned the decision, but still, it's not good enough. Everyone knows it. With the 6-day turnaround hamstring, it's fine. What next? He probably misses this week as well. And Port Adelaide are screwed 2 weeks in a row. Now, I don't think it's going to affect them too much, especially a fortnight from now when they play the Hawks at Adelaide Oval. They're probably going to do what they did last year and absolutely smack the Hawks, so it might not look like that bad in hindsight maybe, but this is going to age horrifically. Captained first Showdown, didn't work out. And Port Adelaide have kicked now 108 goals, 113 for the year. So, as fraudulent as you think they are, their goal kicking is way worse. Going to give a win here to Collingwood just for their win, really. They drew with the Bombers after being statistically dominated throughout the majority of that game, and they just got over the line against the Blues by statistically dominating them in parts. Harvey Harrison's tap to Nick Dacos to kick that goal was outstanding in order to get that ball into space. And look, Sam Walsh and the Carlton midfielders didn't do anything wrong. Nick took a chance, it came off, still had to kick a difficult goal. He did. Sometimes you've just got to tip your cap to the opposition. But the way that some guys stood up that maybe hadn't over the last couple of weeks, I'm looking firmly at Jack Crisp in that area, and the way that no one from the Pies really had an outstandingly bad game that they were able to band together. And look, not that I want to automatically go with, I hope a team specifically loses, but if Collingwood kick 85 points in a loss to West Coast this week, which would be extraordinary, but still, they did lose to the Eagles a couple of years ago, they would be the first team in AFL, VFL history to kick the same score 3 weeks in a row for 3 different results. They kicked 85 in the draw against the Bombers and 85 in a win against the Blues. If they kicked 85 in a loss against the Eagles, they would make some history, which would be really fun, and West Coast beating Collingwood for non-Collingwood fans would be nearly the best thing since Christmas. But they're back. They simply are. I'm not ready to put them into the upper echelon tier with the likes of the Swans, Giants, these kinds of teams, but they're seemingly back, and in a month's time, they could absolutely be in that top tier with those top teams. This is nothing personal against Errol Goulden, I promise you, but how the hell didn't Will Hayward win the Brett Kirk medal? Now, I know Errol was good, and that's why I don't want this to come across as disrespectful, but Sydney don't win that game and get the ascendancy in that third quarter, especially without Will Hayward's performance, and I thought he was pretty stiff, so he can have a massive win here. Kane Corns loves him, and he's happily showing off on Twitter, which is fine. Absolutely fine. We love it when we get things right, no matter who we are. I can understand why Carlton are going after him in a big way. That sort of third, tall, versatile sort of option would be perfect for the Blues while they try and get their small forward mix right with, Owies and Durden and Motlop. And, these guys that can come in. I think the Blues should look at Malachi Champion in the draft. I really do. But they've got bids for Ben and Lucas Camporiali coming, so it probably will be a struggle for them. But still, Will Hayward, was excellent on the weekend. Look, the Giants, they were up for the Brisbane game. They were down for this one. They might move spots on the tiers, but I'm not dropping them from tier 1 to tier 2 just yet at all. I do think the AFL website saying that they need more out of Toby Green is a little bit fucking ridiculous, to be completely honest, but this is more of a celebration for the Swans than it is a bashing of the Giants, if you will. Let's keep the winners list rolling. Why not? Jack Sinclair is back in his very best form, and I don't want to hear, and this is one of my pet peeves, and if you've followed my channel for a while, you know that this is one of my pet peeves of yeah, but it was against North Melbourne. If it was that easy, every single player in the competition would be putting up those numbers. They don't. Yes, it may be a easier opposition to get those numbers against. You've still got to go out and do it. He's back in some really good form. It sucks that he's going to come up against the Hawks and probably dominate us at Taz, because he's in this kind of form, but take the Hawthorn hat off, Daz. We'll touch on them later. He was fantastic, and it's these kind of games that you can work yourself back into this form. Now, I don't think he's going to be, the All-Australian caliber that he was last year, but also what he produced for the month before this wasn't really an indicator of who he is either. He is still one of the top echelon defense midfielders in the competition. His ability to play across both thirds of the ground, I should say, is fantastic, and was able to hit the scoreboard as well. Well done, Jack. Now, if you got 29 disposals, 8 marks, 8 tackles, and a goal from your captain, would you take that? Of course you would. There's no real downside to that. So you might be thinking, the winners list, as we are absolutely rolling. Not if you got co-captains, it doesn't. Now, I know that Jai Simpkin, after the Jimmy Webster incident, may not be at his best. I understand that. He is playing, though. So there's a part of me that goes, I feel sympathy, but not totally going to excuse it. And look, I hope someone from North, even if it's a fan, so get in the comments, what does Luke McDonald bring to this side from a leadership standpoint? Because I don't know, and he could be the greatest bloke. I hope he is, personally, but on the field, we can only call it as we see it, and I don't see what is being brought to the table here. And I'm not saying kick him out of the captaincy spot, because who the hell are you going to put in there? Harry Sheezel at 20 years old would be like throwing to the wolves, so I get what's happening, but right now, there seems to be more harm than good. Now, Luke McDonald wasn't North Melbourne's worst on the weekend. The problem is he's never really in their best 2 or 3. And as a captain, that's a little bit worrying, especially looking at the other captains in the league, and they're just not getting enough out of their senior guys at all. Darcy Tucker's just not doing enough. They talk beautifully about what Liam Shields is doing, but look, he's not getting a gig in any other team in the competition. And it was another North loss where, sure, they may not have got belted, but apart from the first 15, 20 minutes, they just weren't in the game. Pick 18, Darcy Wilson, bloody star. How bloody good was this young man? Not only his offensive power, which of course 3 goals too is a fairly strong indicator of that, but his ability to work defensively as well. We knew he was an elite runner coming into the draft, so that's not a surprise, but still, you've still got to be able to translate good running patterns and good consistency in your running to make it as an AFL wingman. And he has sorted that beautifully. He suits Ross Lyon's game plan to an absolute T, and the fact he was able to hit the scoreboard was due reward, I thought, for his ability to burn his opponents at both ends of the ground. He's going to be a star. Stevie J on the Sunday Rub said he's going to play 350 games, which is extraordinary. Just take it one at a time, maybe, every 25, 50, every season at a time, who knows. But he is a guy that St Kilda, if at any point in time got talked about in trade talks, another club could really use Darcy Wilson later on in his career, St Kilda fans are going to get the pitchforks out and go, you're not touching him. That's how much they love this kid, and so they bloody should. He has been awesome. Given a win to Melbourne here, it was an ugly game, but an ugly win is fantastic. And I can't help but think of the Sydney Swans team of 2005. Now, I know they had more champions in hindsight than potentially Melbourne do, although Gawn, Oliver, Petrarca, I know Oliver's down on form, and that's perfectly fine. But May, Lever, that Sydney team had some extraordinarily good players as well. But I remember just before an Essendon game in 2005, CEO at the time, Andrew Demetrio, said that the Swans are not playing good enough football at all. Now, we know what happened there. Sydney went on to win the flag. A lot of people are doubting Melbourne as a side because they're not playing their sexiest football, but as long as they're winning, they're golden, and that's absolutely fine. You can have their doubts over their forward line. It's something they've got to continually improve. But also, as well, they don't need to be the best version of themselves at round 8. You know, if they can still maintain a consistent winning form and figure it out over the next 2 months, by the time we hit the back end of the year, they'll be primed and ready to go for a premiership tilt. So, doubt them at your peril, I reckon. I don't like doing this, but Tom Hawkins gets a loser of the weekend, and it's been 5 weeks running. Now, the rest had been North pretty stiff, I understand. And you could argue there with Harris Andrews, Jacob Wiedering, and Stephen May, the quality of defenders he's come up against is one of the most selfless footballers. I'm not doing this because I hate Tom Hawkins, I promise you. Even as a Hawthorn fan, I promise you, I don't hate Tom Hawkins. I only hate him when he plays the Hawks. So I promise you, don't stress in that department. But can we even call it a concern, even, considering how well the Cats are going? But sometimes you just got to call it out a little bit. Tom Hawkins, it's just a small one. I think they play Port this week at GMHBA. He's going to kick 7, and this is going to look stupid. So as long as you know that I know that, we're all good. Giving a win here to Darcy Parish. I know Nick Martin and Zach Merritt were fantastic for the Bombers, but I'm going to give Darcy some love because, my God, Essendon look like such a better team when he is up and about and playing at his best. We remember earlier in the year where he had something like 60 metres gained for 27 disposals, which is just nuts. Had nearly the 500, as you can see on your screen, and his ability to move the ball forward is pretty much going to determine how effective he is as a midfielder, and that Essendon midfield is humming at the moment. You might think to yourself, they only beat West Coast by a goal, doesn't mean much. Essendon teams of the past would have wilted here. They nearly did it last year in the game against the Eagles as well. They flew over to Optus. It was a bit of a danger game. It was something like 31%, I think, on ESPN Footy Tips. Tipped the Eagles, myself included, and the Bombers absolutely went, we're going to develop here. This is what we're going to do. We're going to stick it out. And they stuck it out. I don't think we can give them less credit for a margin rather than acknowledging that an Essendon team of the past would have just gone, this is too hard. And they didn't. And that win could be really important, especially considering the draw they had with the Pies last week. So, caps off to the Bombers and caps off to Darcy Parish for a really good performance. One of those moments, again, where it's going to be spoken about a lot more than I will in this, but Jamie Cripps, that was stupid. Moving on. Another middle finger to the doubters here. Justin Longmuir gets a winner of the weekend. The Dockers are now 4-0 after scoring 69 or more points in a game this year. And the blueprint is simple. Again, they went into state. It could have been a danger game. It would have been a very Freo thing of last year or maybe even the year before, even though they played finals. Thing to do would be to drop this game and bang, they were on from the start. We know what Luke Ryan did. Caleb Sarong, Hayden Young were awesome. I wanted to give Matty Johnson a winner of the weekend as well for his 25 disposals, and he was fantastic. But overall, I'm going to go to the coach, who was doubted over his 1-year contract extension, and right now, the players are playing for him. And no one's talking about that 1 year now. Looks like a good move as they re-establish themselves as a top 8 side. They're 6th at the moment. They're going nicely. But also, I know that the next week, whenever that is, that they, have maybe a 61 to 69 loss or whatever, scoreboard-wise, everyone's going to jump off, and I don't think I'm going to do that as quickly this time. They've shown us now a good amount of times what they can do, and look, not every team's going to be fantastic. The 2008 Cats side did lose one home and away game, didn't win the flag, so unless someone out there wants to be the new 2000 Bombers, which no one in this competition is, there's going to be a little bit of inconsistency there. But I'm buying some Freo stock at the moment. Not too much and not a too high price, but I'm on board. He may have had 21 pressure acts over the weekend, but when you're a young, rebuilding side, you just need to be better than what Shea Bolton delivered on the weekend. His highlight reel is amazing. The way he played against St Kilda really stood out. He's had some really good games. But in this isolated 4-quarter performance, he, like the Tigers, were nowhere. And whilst, yes, as a football club, you can try to blame 50-metre penalties and free kicks if you want to, I kind of agree with what Robbo wrote in the Herald Sun about the free kick differential, especially when it comes to incorrect disposal, which I think is just the worst officiated rule in the AFL pretty much at the moment. And I understand that extra 225 minus free kick differential between them and Hawthorn, which, by the way, how's free kick Hawthorn working for everyone else right now? When you have a dynasty, the umpires don't really like you. That's kind of the way it works. Brisbane weren't really looked after. Neither were the Cats, really. That's just the way that it works sometimes. But incorrect disposal, I kind of get it. But there are things within your control. Shea didn't perform. Simple as that. I've been one to doubt James Sicily this year as he's been nowhere near his best. And when his shoulder dislocated, it was just, here we go. He came back on and I went, oh, this is a bit different. And then he tweaked his ankle and I went, all right, sis, you've done enough. And then he came back on and then he got a bit of an ear massage and I went, is he done? Nah, went forward, kicked the sealer. People are going to point out the reaction he had to the Nick Watson miss because you can't wear your heart on your sleeve anymore. He did mention afterwards that he had a chat to him. Everything's all good. And look, Nick Watson, everyone's going to knock him because of that miss, but the tackle on Jason Johannesson 30 seconds later, the 2-on-1 that he won on the wing that allowed Hawthorn to get the game-winning territory, they're the things you need to focus on as a young player. He's kicked 2 goals, 9 for the year. They will start going through. So that's enough about the Wizard, but I loved what Sick Dog did, and his day started with a really cool, wholesome moment where, because it doesn't matter where you kick at Marvel Stadium, he asked the kid that was tossing the coin what he should pick. The kid said heads. Sis said heads, got it right, gave the kid some love. I loved that, and the rest of the day evolved into an amazing, I think, Hawthorn performance, the way they were able to set up behind the ball. Lloyd Meek v Tim English was a fantastic matchup, in my opinion, and the Hawks were able to stifle a Bulldogs tall trio by conceding less marks to their big three than even Freo did last week, and they had Rory Lobb instead of Jamari Ugle-Hagan. So a massive tick for Sam Mitchell and to the Hawks as the lid is back on. But yesterday afternoon, the lid was well and truly off down here in Gippsland, Victoria at Daz HQ, let me tell you. These guys get another loser of the weekend. Lost to West Coast last year. They've lost to Hawthorn now 3 times in a row. That's it. Probably the gutsiest performance of the year in terms of cavalry down, but Brisbane were fantastic. Their senior guys stood up, and look, they were playing against witches' hats, but let's give credit where it's due. We smacked them for their GWS performance, and we can get around them now for what they did. They were fantastic, the Lions. I thought Zorko and Neil really led the charge. I don't think I've seen Josh Dunkley play a better game than that for a while, and Hugh McCluggage's manager right now is just thinking, how much more can we add to that restricted free agent contract? Thought Kai Lohman was excellent, as well as their running half-backs with Darcy Wilmot and Connor McKenna. So all round, a fantastic performance by Brisbane, and let's just go straight into their opponents, because if they're not playing at Heritage Bank Stadium or whatever the hell it's called now, the Suns are shit. So what does it mean? No idea. First year under Dimar, still learning. Yeah, cool. You have to be better than this, for crying out loud. And speaking of things that have to be better than this, my last loser of the weekend and my last little bit here is my Supercoach team. 2,038 we scored this week, and the amount of problems that I've seemingly got now are out of control, and I fucking hate this game now. So, everything's peachy here at Daz HQ, let me tell you. But they're my winners and losers for round 8. What do you think? Comment below, let me know. Click the like button, it really helps more people see the videos. And as of the time of recording, we've hit the 2,800 subscriber mark, which is fantastic. Let's fingers crossed we can get to 3,000 as quickly as possible. So share this with a mate. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Stay safe throughout the start of the working week, and I will see you on Wednesday night.